Diddy Kong Racing! Diddy Kong Racing, developed by Rare for the N64. One YouTuber, Uber Danger, in his playthrough of Diddy Kong Racing said it was notoriously difficult. Well, not for me. I was a master. Be the best! Developed by Rare, they are British developers of GoldenEye fame, and it was the fastest selling video game at the time. Christmas 1997 was looming and a AAA game was in high demand. Rare demoed the game to Shigeru Miyamoto, who didn't think that the IP of Pro-Am 64 was strong enough. Pro-Am 64? Not quite as catchy. Diddy Kong Racing! Other names touted for the game were Wild Cartoon Kingdom and Adventure Racers. So anyway, Miyamoto didn't think that the IP of Pro-Am 64 was strong enough, i.e. it didn't feature enough famous characters, it didn't feature enough big names for the game to sell that well. So Rare changed the license to feature Diddy Kong of Donkey Kong fame. It also included Banjo as a playable character from Banjo Kazooie, also amazing, and Conker from Conker's Bad Fur Day. So Conker the squirrel, let's just sit here for a second. He was one of the playable characters in Diddy Kong Racing. And the idea was that Conker had met Diddy Kong in one of their many, many adventures. So Rare owned the copyrights to Conker the squirrel, and he starred in other games. But the interesting one, later known as Conker's Bad Fur Day, which had, let's call it, a much more mature atmosphere, along with satirical humour, excessive violence, blood and gore, foul language, and sexual themes. The plot went that Conker was a slacker and an alcoholic, materialist, and Conker is introduced into the game lying to his girlfriend Berry so that he can stay at the pub for longer. Link in comments. And the game was actually praised for its graphics and animations, original style and storytelling. So years after its release, Rare became a subsidiary of Microsoft in 2002. The game was remade for the Xbox, but unfortunately the game was more censored for the Xbox than its more rough and ready original version, which is odd, as you know, Xbox compared to the N64 definitely was aimed at an older audience. So yeah, I mean, odd that the original was so crude and sexy compared to the Xbox version. Yeah, I didn't realise that Conker was such a bad man when I was playing Diddy Kong Racing. So characters, they all had a distinct personality and you got to choose yours and sometimes your vehicle, hovercraft, aeroplane or car, and take them around these kind of dreamy, glorious lands, these dreamy, glorious worlds. You had Diddy Kong. In terms of Diddy's handling and speed, he was kind of like Mario in Mario Kart, ultimately a sort of mid player. Banjo, so he was a honey bear, and he was the second heaviest racer. I always hated the heavy racers. Pipsy was my fave. She was light and speedy with good handling. Conker, as discussed, was the red squirrel, kind of a middleweight racer really, from Conker's Bad Fur Day. I actually did have time for Conker as a character as my second choice, despite always choosing Pipsy. Yeah, I mean, if I was doing multiplayer and someone had chosen Pipsy, I would choose Conker. Kindred spirits, possibly. And then you had Crunch, Tip Top, Timber and Bumper, less interesting players in my opinion. Yeah, they had the TT challenge, which was fun. This is where the player had to race the TT clock's best times. It was required to unlock TT himself, which I obviously did. Levels. So you had these worlds which contained different levels. Worlds included Dino Domain, probably my favourite as the whole thing was just so chunky and warm and holiday-like. Snowflake Mountain, and the level in that was the best was Walrus Cove. They all just had this like icy vibe. They also had Everfrost Peak, which was also really cute and it was really festive. They even had festive music to go with the level. And you'd race through these levels. You know, it was a racing game, and you'd race through these levels and pick up bananas to increase speed. And I believe if you got enough silver coins, your bar of silver coins at the side of the screen would fill up, and that would give you a boost or some kind of cool energy to your race. Yeah, playing the game was always kind of like, in my opinion, going on a holiday. All the worlds were kind of exotic with dinosaurs or like icy, like Walrus Cove, or snowy and festive. The sun was always shining basically, and there were palm trees everywhere. Graphics were good, and the whole game was kind of cozy to play. So like I said, one of my favourite levels was Walrus Cove. The boss of it is this big walrus which you have to race down like a mountain or something like that, and yeah, the music for that's really, really tense and a little bit scary, because you know, you just had this walrus. You'd sometimes get ahead of it and you could see its shadow, but then it would push past you, and it was really, really big, so it could knock knock you off the side of the mountain. I think it was a mountain, but either way, that was a really good boss. So in South London, there's this museum called the Horniman Museum. Bona fide South Londoners tend to just refer to it simply as Hornimans. Horniman was a explorer of the 1800s, 1900s, 1800s, and he went all around the world and obviously came back with all of these finds, one of which was this massive walrus. Obviously no one in England had seen a walrus at the time, and the walrus is stuffed and extremely well preserved and sitting in the lobby of the Horniman Museum. Because nobody had seen a walrus before, the walrus was actually stuffed to the point of bursting. They didn't acknowledge the fact that walruses are usually a little bit more kind of flabby and skinny. Well, they're not skinny, but they're kind of, you know, long and thin with loose folds on them. And this walrus is just sitting there in the lobby, massive, overstuffed, very uncomfortable. Poor thing must just be waiting for someone to just stab it so that all of the feathers will fly out and it can just relax, you know, for the first time in like 100 years. So yeah, stuffed walrus. And in the dinosaur level, you're kind of chasing after this rhino boss, which was really fun. You'd have to kind of like bump into it, and that would like knock him off for a second, and you could speed ahead of the rhino. Yeah, it was a really nice moment when that happened. As you play the game more, you find these little shortcuts, which would obviously help you to move through the level faster. So yeah, there were these kind of like, you know, you could suddenly find a little tunnel which would take you through the mountain, and then you'd be leagues ahead of whatever boss or whatever player you were racing. Other highlights include the genie race and the soundtrack for the genie. Oh my god, the genie soundtrack. And the genie was really nice. You know, he was just this kind of like, you know, elephant who was always a nice little guy to encounter. Soundtrack was composed by a guy called David Wise, who also did the soundtrack for GoldenEye, Donkey Kong Country. He is a British video game composer and he worked for Rare. The soundtrack's amazing for Diddy Kong Racing. He learnt a range of musical instruments as a youth, piano, trumpet, and he was in a few bands. It was a great soundtrack. Hats off to David Wise. I often make playlists on Spotify, and one of them was based on games or best game soundtracks, just for when you're like feeling fruity and you want to spice your day up. So check it out. Call me controversial, but I'd go as far as to say this was my favourite N64 game. The graphics were great. The characters were fun. You even recognise some of them, which was, you know, that kind of nice synergy that games of the time had. And yeah, it was just bright, colourful, and all in all, a really comforting thing to get home to and play. It was just a really interesting little vibe. So that's it, Diddy Kong Racing. I mean, it was simplistic, fun, and very enjoyable. It gets a 9.87 out of 10 for me as one of the games that I've loved most in my life. It gets a strong 9.16 from me. The time has come, the walrus said, to talk of many things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot, and whether pigs have wings. Diddy is supposed to be a spider monkey. So that was Diddy Kong Racing. I hope you enjoyed it. Please stay tuned for some more gaming, poetry, etymology, history, and maybe even some ASMR videos in the near future. Thank you so much for watching. Mwah, mwah, mwah. I miss you.